All right, today we're covering 8 challenges to becoming a pilot and how to overcome them. All right, here's the flight plan. We'll start with an introduction like we always do. We'll get into the training. We're going to cover landings, weather analysis, risk management, navigating without GPS, personal limits, radio communications, frequency, and how to pay for your flight instruction. And of course, we'll end with a Q&A at the end. By the way, I got some feedback that I apparently am too boring and I should try to incorporate more jokes into these things. I tried it and failed miserably, so I decided I'm just going to keep being me. And if you guys want to throw out some jokes during it, I would love to hear them. All right, let's do it. So a quick introduction. For those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Monty. I'm a flight instructor. I am building my flight school, Emerald Squadron Aviation. I'm a former airborne ranger, deployed twice, once to Iraq, once to Afghanistan, and I'm a flight instructor, like I said. Graduated from UW-Bothell with a degree in mechanical engineering. Also have associate's degrees in science and business. And I love sharing aviation with you guys. And my whole mission is to help you earn your wings. If you want to check it out, there's my website. Join if you want. Got some free stuff on there as well as some paid content. And bam, introduction is complete. If you have any questions throughout, just go ahead and shout them out. Let's get into landings. So one of the most difficult topics to cover in aviation or for students to grasp is how to land the aircraft. And I have a whole webinar and a whole course for this one on the website at emeraldsquadronaviation.com. You can definitely go check it out. Sign up. It's free. It has an accompanying PDF. Let's talk real quick about what you can do to polish your landings. First of all, nail your airspeeds. One of the best things you can do is just practice at altitude, changing your airspeed, pitch, power, and trim off for hands-off flight in various configurations. Start at cruise speed, 100 knots, 110 knots, whatever. That's pretty easy. Trim for level flight, and then reduce power, maintain altitude, and then trim for 90 knots, and then switch it up and trim for 85. Basically. Practice nailing different airspeeds and getting comfortable switching between different airspeeds at altitude. Always practice these at altitude before you go down to the ground and practice them. Next, nailing your altitude. So like we did before, pitch, power, and trim. Get that VSI to 0 and nail 1,000 feet or nail 3,000 feet. Not 3,001, not 2,999, but nail your altitudes plus or minus 0. The more precise you can be while maintaining situational awareness, the better you'll be. And then go out and practice the pattern. With a flight instructor, practice your legs, squaring off your legs, correct altitudes in the pattern, and then go to off airport and go practice the rectangular course. We covered this before, but basically the rectangular course and the pattern both have to do with dealing with crosswinds. So if you can handle crabbing or adjusting for various crosswinds, that'll set you up nicely for your landings. They say that a good landing starts with a good traffic pattern, and that is absolutely true. So go practice those patterns and practice going around too. Set up for a good landing and then practice going around, because your go-arounds will also come up on your check ride. Next, vertical speed. Now, before we were just talking about changing altitudes and changing airspeeds. Now what I want you to do is go up to altitude, select an altitude, pitch, power, trim, and then set a rate of climb or descent by pitch, power, and trim. Again, pitch for 90 knots and then nail 500 feet per minute rate of climb. Trim for that 500 foot per minute rate of climb. Get to your altitude, trim for level altitude, stay there, lock it in, and then go back down. Pitch for 500 feet per minute rate of descent this time, and trim that off until you can sustain a perfect 500 foot per minute rate of descent. And of course, go out and practice this a bunch of times. And then finally, it's slow flight. My catchphrase with my flight students, they always hear me say, the last thing I say before I shut my mouth is just slow flight right over the runway. We're not going to try to land a plane. We're just going to practice slow flight right over the runway. And then when the plane is ready, we'll set it down nice and easy. When you go practice slow flight, again, start at altitude, something like 6,000 feet. So if you stall out, you have plenty of time to recover. At altitude, I want you to reduce your power. Well, actually, let's start. Back it up. Clearing turns first, and then reduce power. Pitch for 55 knots. Add 3 notches of flaps, and then just practice using pitch for airspeed and power for altitude. A lot of people think that your power is how you get fast and slow. It's really your nose, the angle of attack, that's going to dictate your airspeed, especially in slow flight. Maintain coordination, practice keeping that ball centered and doing really gentle turns in slow flight to different headings. And of course, practice is key. Go out and practice a bunch. You can't expect to get good in anything really without going out and doing the work. So yeah, to improve your landings, nail your airspeeds, nail your altitudes, practice the pattern, practice the rectangular course, the ground reference maneuvers, nail your vertical speeds, practice slow flight, and practice. And of course, go check out my website for some additional training. All right, so that covers landings. Next, let's talk about weather analysis. Most student pilots and private pilots are really uncomfortable flying in anything other than clear skies and perfect visibility, greater than 10 miles. And that's okay, especially when you're first starting out. But that doesn't mean that you should neglect your ability to interpret weather data, because then you become a fair weather pilot and you never progress. Of course, don't ever go into a thunderstorm without a flight instructor. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, learn how to interpret weather so you can make safe decisions with and without your instructor. And the best way to do this is go to 1-800-WEATHER BRIEF every day and go see what the weather does. Go try to understand how different fronts will affect the weather in your area. In this case right here, there's a low pressure area just west of us. And there's a cold fronts, warm fronts, occluded fronts, and stationary fronts. And we can kind of see what they do over time. If you just go and look at it once a week, it doesn't really help you. If you go and study it like every day for a month, it'll really strengthen your understanding of how the weather systems work in your area. Now, 1-800-WEATHER BRIEF is also a phone number that you can call. You can talk to a weather briefer who will give you a better understanding of what the weather's doing than if you would just try to interpret it yourself. So I would say do both. Call the weather briefer, let him know, hey, I'm a pilot. I'd like to get a weather brief for this route, let's say Payne down to Portland. And then he'll say, Roger, this is what the weather's doing. Here are the NOTAMs. This is what I think it's going to do later on. Here's a forecast. And then go on the website and go look at it yourself and try to see what he was talking about, or she, of course. And just get comfortable interpreting the weather. Up here, you have different charts. You can study surface analysis charts, winds aloft, basically any chart you can dream of. You can find it here on 1-800-WEATHER BRIEF. You can also file your flight plans in Plan and Brief. It's a free service, and they'll send search and rescue after you if you don't check back in. So it's an extra bit of security for your flights. So that's 1-800-WEATHER BRIEF. The other place you could do it is SkyVector, Garmin Pilot, 4Flight. They all have the ability to give you a weather brief. It'll look pretty much just like the 1-800-WEATHER briefs. But again, practice getting it from different sources. Talk to the briefer, talk to your flight instructor, talk to me, and we can help you get a better understanding of weather. Bam. Questions so far? Shout them out if you do. And jokes. I want to hear your jokes today. All right, continuing on with the most common difficult topics in aviation, risk management. So risk management is really just trying to mitigate any risk that might come up in your flight. And the FAA likes the term aeronautical decision making. It's the systematic approach to solving problems, essentially. And they have different checklists that they use. There's a really long one. There's the 3P model: perceive, process, and perform. Basically, it's taking information, figure out what you're going to do, and then go do it, right? I personally prefer using the astronauts method. If you guys have spent time with me before, you'll know that I love Colonel Chris Hadfield. He wrote a book called The Astronaut's Guide to Life on Earth. And in his book, they talk about how astronauts solve problems on the space station or in space. And it's 3 steps: warn, gather, work the problem. And I love it. Warn. First, you have to identify that there's a problem and then let your team know that there's something going on. Warn your team. In our case, as pilots, it might be like, hey, flight instructor, I think we have an engine failure. Or you might call air traffic control. ATC Cessna 3 Echo has an engine failure, or whatever. Warn your team. And remember that there are more people on your team than you might think. On the ground, of course, you've got your friends and family. You've got your flight instructors. You've got their chief instructor at your school. You've also got, anybody you can think of is on your team. In the air, you might think that you're all alone up there, but don't forget you've got your flight instructor if he's flying with you or she. You can have your friends and family in the back of the aircraft. Air traffic control can be your friend. It can be part of your team down on the ground. Other pilots, if you are talking on the air-to-air frequency, they can also help you out, work through a problem if you need it. So warn, let your team know, hey, there's something up. Gather. Now, on the space station, they wouldn't necessarily start attacking a problem without understanding it. For example, if there's a fire that breaks out on the International Space Station, they're not just going to throw some water on it, because you never know what might be causing that fire. And so you want to gather information about the problem that you're experiencing so that you can attack it in a systematic and scientific method. Once you have gathered your information, then you're going to work the problem. Actually, let's go back a step. Gather. In our case, in the cockpit, we're going to gather information about our problem. Let's say it's that engine failure. Yep, the engine has stopped working. The tachometer is indicating, 0 RPM or whatever. It doesn't sound like the engine's running anymore. Let's gather our checklist and run through it, and then work the problem. In space, they're going to use checklists. They're going to use whatever scientific method they're going to use to solve their problem, and they're going to keep working it until they either finish, solve the problem, or they perish. And that's the same with us. We're going to work the problem and we're going to fly through the crash. Let's go back to that engine failure problem. Engine's dead. We've gathered our checklist. We verified, visually and orally and everything that it is an engine failure. And we're going to work through our problem. Airspeed, best glide speed. B, best place to land. Somewhere over there. C, checklist. Run through it, and follow your aircraft's checklist to get that engine back online. And if you can't get it back online, going back to those hazardous attitudes we talked about a while ago, remember that you can affect the outcome of your flight. So if you think, oh man, I'm going to die, I might as well quit now, that's the wrong answer. Keep flying the plane, maintain positive control, land the plane, fly through the crash, and don't stop flying the plane until you are fully stopped. And then once you're on the ground, you also can affect how things go. So move away from the propeller, get your passengers out safely, and move to a safe area. Just never give up, right? In the beginning, I had a picture of a lion chewing on a Terminator's head because I love the Sarah Connor Chronicles, the Terminator series, and I love that hang in there, baby, kind of mentality. Stick with it, never give up. All right. So that's risk management. Next, let's talk about navigating without GPS. Now, these days, most of my students are like, why do we bother with all these other types of navigation? We have GPS. We have the ability to just plug in, our destination and just blindly follow it. Yeah, that's true. GPS is very useful. But what if it goes down, right? What if you fly through some airspace that you're not supposed to be flying through? Right? It's always a good idea to practice different types of navigation. Yes, definitely know how to use your GPS. Study your manuals so that you know how to press all the buttons and how to change, commands or whatever, load approaches. Study your GPS module. That's not what I'm not saying. Don't do it. Don't use it. I'm saying you should also learn how to navigate in these different flavors. So first one. Pilotage. That is using the old Mark I eyeball. Get your map, piece of paper, a chart, and look outside the aircraft and see what corresponds with your map. Like there's a big body of water over there. There's a big body of water here on my map where I expect it to be. And confirm your position as you fly. Do that in addition to flying with your GPS. Also pay attention to the airspace that you're flying through and the altitudes that those restrictions are. So that's pilotage. Next is dead reckoning. I actually like this one. I call it navigating by math. And a lot of the time I get pushback from students because they think it's boring and tedious to do the calculations. But essentially what we're doing is we're getting, let's say we're going to go from Arlington to Fall City here. We're getting we draw a line on the map and we get a heading or a course using a protractor. Let's say it gives us a course of 165. Then we're going to add or subtract the GM angle or the angle between true north and magnetic north. In this case, like something like 15 degrees. Now we're down to 150. And then we're also going to take in the winds and account for wind drift using math to do this all. And then we're also going to take into account magnetic deviation in the aircraft and temperature. Basically, we're going to use all our math knowledge as pilots to find an exact heading to fly on our compass to get to our destination. And then we're going to monitor in real time to see how close we are. I think it's fascinating. I think it's so cool that you can use math to navigate an aircraft so precisely. And of course, your GPS does it automatically, but it is, I think, super cool and very impressive when a pilot knows how to do it and retains those skills. So that's pilotage, dead reckoning. The next one is VOR navigation. This one is really cool too. I've got students that call it, 18th century technology, but it's super awesome. It's a radio station that sends out these courses or radials, and we can use them to navigate. And the instruments inside our aircraft will tell us, if we're flying to the course, they'll say, hey, the instrument will tell you where you are in relation to the course that you've selected. And I've got a video specifically covering VOR navigation. I think they're really cool. It's a really cool topic. But I realize that most people find the older school of method or older methods kind of silly. Anyways, so study VOR navigation, get good at it. Study all of these. I mean, if nothing else, they're going to be on the exam. So get good at them and then practice them in real life, because the more you can use it in real life, the better you will be on the exam. Now, how do we practice this on the ground without renting an expensive aircraft? Land nav. For all my infantry buddies out there, land nav is the best. In Washington State, I don't know, I know some of you are going to be watching this on YouTube. In Washington State, there's a club called the Cascade Orienteering Club. They're not paying me to say anything about them. And it's a really cool free thing that you can go do. Go to the website and you can find permanent courses, land navigation or orienteering courses. And you can download the map and a control page with different points. It'll tell you this is your start point. And then you will have to figure out how to navigate to each of these points. And you can practice your aviation skills on the ground for free. For example, if you wanted to go from point 34 to 33, you can draw a line here, use your compass, use your protractor to find the heading that you need to go to and adjust for, variation if not included, and use a compass to walk to that point. It's a walk in the park, literally. Most of these courses are pretty easy, especially at the beginner level. My son and I like to go to the advanced level because they're more of a challenge. And of course, they give you like approximate distances for the entire course, what the points look like. Anyways, the point is, this is where you can practice your land navigation, which directly corresponds to air navigation. Lots of fun to go practice with the family, and then you can go apply it in the air. Bam. Cascade Orienteering Club. All right, going on with our topics that are difficult for students to cover, personal limits. Now, the FAA puts out legal minimums for various things. For example, fuel. If you guys remember, in VFR world, we need to be able to get to our destination plus 30 minutes of fuel at cruise speed legally during the day. At night, we need to have an additional 45 minutes of fuel, get to our destination plus 45 minutes of cruise. And in IFR, there's also the 45-minute requirement. Lost my train of thought. Yeah, so basically the FAA has these legal minimums. So fuel, weather, you've got your 3152, you have to be out of clouds by 500 feet below, 1,000 feet above. If these are the clouds, you need 3 miles visibility. You need to stay clear by 500 feet, 1,000 feet above, right? And then 2,000 feet horizontal. Now, these are the legal minimums. In class golf airspace, you need 1 mile of visibility and just remain clear of clouds. That is incredibly low for somebody who is not instrument rated, but it's legal. Now, as a pilot and as a good person, you should always add on to these minimums and set up your own personal minimums. And sometimes students have a hard time figuring out how exactly to do that. Well, there's something that the FAA puts out. There's the PAVE checklist, which stands for the pilot, the aircraft, the environment, and the external pressures. And this is that checklist. Basically, you can say, my personal minimums are, if I have not done 10 takeoffs and landings in the last 30 days, then I'm not going to fly the plane with passengers. Or let's say if I haven't slept 15 hours in the last 24 hours, I'm not going to go fly. Or if I have not had any chow in the last 12 hours, I'm not going to fly, right? You get the idea. Basically, each one of these categories, you can establish your own personal minimums so that you're making good, safe decisions. And you see here it stands for pilot, aircraft, environment, the V in environment, and external pressures. And of course, you can read through this. So that is how you establish your own personal minimums. And of course, there are other ways to do it, but it has come up in the past. Okay, going on to radio communications. This is a tough one. A lot of students just feel afraid of sounding stupid on the radios, or they're afraid that the ATC is gonna, ding them for saying something stupid. ATC is not the sky police. They are there to help you. And in fact, at Payne Field, my understanding is that it's a training airport. So even ATC will make mistakes. They are learning just like you are. And there's a person at the other end of the radio. And if you're ever unclear or unsure what to say, you can always just say it in plain English and we'll figure it out, right? Now, if you want to get good, if you want to sound good on the radios, go to live ATC and park yourself in front of an airport and just listen to live ATC for an hour or something and just have a mental picture, or like watch the airplanes in the pattern and see what they're doing and try to anticipate their calls. Remember that most calls will be repeated. So ATC will say something like, Cessna 2438 Echo, cleared for takeoff. And then the pilot will respond, Cessna 2438 Echo, cleared for takeoff, runway, whatever. So you can kind of get in the rhythm and anticipate the second call, the second part of that call. And if you pick a tail number to just follow, you can respond as if you were them. And that's how you get good. Also, back when I was in UW, I used to break out like radios or like walkie-talkies and practice talking to each other. One person would be the tower, the other person would be the plane, and we draw runways on the ground, or whatever, and just have fun with it. People make fun of me for it, but I enjoy it. It's fun. The key is practice. The more practice you have, the more comfortable you're going to be, and the better you're going to be. And if you're like me, slow down. Remember that there's somebody else at the other end of the radio who needs to understand you. My own issues are that I tend to speak a little fast on the radios. You guys probably see that. I'm talking like a million miles a minute right now. So I'll work on it. All right. Frequency. A lot of students ask, how often should I fly? Really, the best thing you can do is fly as often as possible. I used to fly once every other week, and that did not. Let's talk about the curve here. This is the curve of forgetting. If you do something, let's say you go to class and then you don't review it, you will forget it pretty quick, right? If you review the topic immediately after class, then your curve of forgetting tends to shift to the right. You tend to remember things a little longer. If you review again and again, periodically throughout the week, you will tend to remember things better. And this applies in aviation as well, not just like knowledge topics, but like your own psychomotor skills, your ability to fly the aircraft. So the more you fly and the more frequently you fly, the better your skills will be. Now, the general rule of thumb these days is to fly about twice a week. If you can fly, let's say, Monday, Wednesday, that's better than trying to fly Monday, and then the following Monday, or like once a week. So, basically you should fly as often as you can. And then the other thing that I like to supplement our flight time is sim time. And if you want, I can help you set up your own personal sim and teach you how to effectively use it. The short version is get a decent simulator setup, like a yoke or stick. Make sure you get rudder pedals, and X-Plane 11 or 12 or FS 2020 isn't bad. But a decent simulator, treat it like you would an actual aircraft, and then practice every day. Practice what you do in the real plane, and then just run through your flows, practice your techniques, and don't drill bad habits. It's always a good idea to have your flight instructor, help you out when you're practicing on the sim. You can either do virtual lessons like using Discord or Zoom, or you can have the instructor in your house, helping you fly. Also, simulation flight, great place to go train. They have a full motion simulator. They've got a 737 sim in there as well, and you can practice with an instructor. Now, if you are using a home simulator, like a computer simulator, you can't really log those hours for the sake of currency or for the sake of getting a new rating, but you can become proficient using that simulator. And that is what I care about, being proficient, being a solid icy pilot, right? Now, if you have an AATD or an advanced aviation training device, I think is what it stands for. That's what they have at like simulation flight. It's a motion simulator that can actually move, and it has everything is like set up correctly to model the actual aircraft. Now, those you can actually log time in them if you have an instructor with you, and you can log. I think it was up to 2.5 hours for private pilot, and then 20 hours of sim time for your instrument rating. So excellent tool. Something that frustrates me about flight instructors sometimes is when the weather gets bad, like it is now, we'll just cancel training. And that is the wrong answer in my book. If the weather goes south, then we're doing ground. If we can also shift to the simulator and get some good training, even with the weather being rough. So yeah. Anyways, the point is, fly frequently. Use a simulator to supplement your training. Train with a flight instructor who cares and isn't just there to check the box. All right, bam. Now, this is probably the biggest one, paying for flight instruction. Now, if it's just a hobby for you and you just want to fly every other week and that's enough for you, that's fine. Totally okay. If you want to make this a career, my recommendation is focus, get your ratings and get it knocked out so you can start making money. One way you can, get your flight training paid for is the military. There's also the Civil Air Patrol. They offer a flight school for cadets. I actually went there as a cadet once. I didn't actually get the flight training. I went as public affairs. But anyways, the point is the military can help you pay for flight training if you get a pilot slot. Civil Air Patrol, if you apply for scholarships with the WPA or AOPA, I got a scholarship through them to help me train. So there are ways to pay for it. Of course, you can always take out a loan if you want to go that route and treat it like if you treat it like a degree, if you treat it like a career and focus, then you can start making money quick. Now, one thing that I did that really helped me with my training was become a ground instructor. I got my advanced and my instrument ground instructor certificates, and that way I could use my skills to help people get paid for it and use that money to pay for my flight instruction to get additional ratings. Now, the great thing about being a ground instructor is that it forces you to know your stuff. You can't, go be an instructor and be shaky on your knowledge. You have to really know it. And so that kind of accelerates your knowledge. Now, when I went to my check rides, the examiner was, he said he was very impressed with my knowledge on the ground because of how much training I had done as a ground instructor. Teaching a topic or teaching a subject really makes you the expert, and it helps you learn things so much better. So the point is, if you're serious about it, I would recommend getting your ground instructor certificates as early as possible so that you know your stuff and you can get paid for it early. Now, if you go the traditional route and don't get your AGI or IGI, and you wait until you're a CFI to start making money, that's 250 hours where you're not making money. Right? That's potentially years that you're not making money as a ground instructor. So if you're serious about it, look into scholarships, get your AGI and IGI, and maybe even apply for the military if that's what you want to do. That covers it, I think. Man. Now, if you enjoy working with a flight instructor like me, you can hire me to be your flight instructor. Go through Emerald Squadron Aviation or send me a DM, and I would love to fly with you if you're serious about becoming a pilot. If not, you can continue going alone. That's totally fine. You can keep coming to my free discussions, and we'll totally do it that way too. But if you're serious, let me know and I will fly with you. All right, let's get into the Q&A. We're about half an hour in. Perfectly. Awesome. All right, what are your questions at this time? And while you ask questions, I will be doodling.
I know you mentioned the Civil Air Patrol. What kind of opportunities do they have, like if you're joining like as an adult? Because I know that, yeah, you have to be like under 18 to join as like a youth cadet.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was a cadet before I joined the military, and I haven't gone back as an adult. So let me just say that I'm probably not the best to answer this question, but I do know that as an adult, you can actually like be a mission pilot, and you actually have the ability to log time in their aircraft for a significantly reduced rate. So if you're already a rated pilot, you can use their aircraft to maintain currency.
Okay, thanks.
You also have you can like log volunteer hours. You can be part of a search and rescue team. I thought that was really cool, by the way. I used to be on the search and rescue teams when I was a cadet, and I just really enjoyed it. It's a really cool organization. A lot of people bag on it because it's it's like JROTC, but some of my closest friends come from CAP, and if I could go back and do it again, I would absolutely join Civil Air Patrol. All right. Well, if you guys don't have any other questions, I will call it a day. Thanks for joining me today. I really appreciate it, guys. I will see you guys next week at the same time.